But I am joined now by Dr. Frankie Jackson-Spence, the clinical researcher in oncology. Thank you so much for joining me. I don't know if you can answer the question posed by my correspondent. What is the difference between cancer and a form of cancer?
So it's all a spectrum of the same thing. And what I think is really important for the public to know is that whilst having a diagnosis of cancer is a terrible thing, and for many it's devastating news, there are many different forms of cancer, meaning different types of cancer and also different stages of cancer. And no one cancer is the same. So, many patients, even patients that I see, will have cancer treatment that is with curative intent, and they can recover from their cancer and live normal lives.
This was the point that Nigel Farage was making in his programme earlier, that it is difficult. When you're open, people want even more, and that there is going to be an awful lot of speculation about precisely what type of cancer it is. And it seems to me that's slightly unfair, and that the King is entitled to an element of privacy, even if not total privacy, by virtue of his office.
Yeah, I think that's speculating on the type of cancer in this instance when we have no information on the signs and symptoms isn't particularly helpful. What I do think has been really helpful is that the King has shared his journey with his prostate diagnosis, and that has encouraged many men to come forward and get checked out. And so whilst he may want to keep these early stages of cancer and private, and going into cancer treatment is a daunting process, and it's likely he wants to keep that private until he's comfortable in the treatment. But I do think that sharing this is helpful, because if there's anyone sitting at home with niggling symptoms or doubts in their mind that they might be experiencing symptoms, then it might encourage them to come forward and get checked.
To go forward, and can you tell anything from the fact that he will be an outpatient rather than inpatient? Is that an encouraging sign, or are most cancers now treated as an outpatient?
So like I said, all cancers are different. Actually, the majority of treatments that we give for cancer are given as an outpatient, and that is through various forms. It can be through infusions through a vein, through a drip. It can be tablets, and it can be other forms of treatment like radiotherapy. We don't know because we haven't been given any information, but the majority of treatments are as an outpatient. What I think is a positive sign is that the statement is that he should be able to continue with some of his state duties. And actually, this just reinforces the fact that for many patients who are on cancer treatment, they can live relatively normal lives and go on getting about their normal activities of daily life. And we're always really scared to talk about cancer, and many people feel afraid to talk about it and they're worried about it. But actually, all cases are different, and many people can live fairly normally even with a cancer diagnosis and receiving treatment.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jackson-Spence, for joining me. With me now is Dr. Andrew Vance Owen, the former medical director and chief medical officer at Bupa. Thank you for joining me. This must be something that when you were at Bupa came to you regularly, and I imagine the advice is always to get checked as early as you possibly can.
It is, but sadly, people come to you too late, after they should have been checked. And by the time they arrive with Bupa or needing serious medical treatment, and that's why, as Frankie has been saying, it's so important that we get better at picking up diagnosis early and encourage people to come early. And I think what the King has said is very good, that he will hopefully encourage men in his case, with his earlier diagnosis of benign prostate, to actually go and get checked, because there is always a possibility with a benign prostate that it could become malignant.
And without speculating on the King's illness, as a general rule, if cancer is spotted earlier, the rates of survival, of recovery are now very, very good, aren't they? And people may not know that because, as one of my panellists, actually, Nunziata, was saying earlier, people in their 40s and 50s think of cancer as being just terrible and the chance of recovery low, but that's out of date.
It is, and I do think that the sort of shock horror stories today and the sort of messages of sadness and things like that are misplaced. Of course, it's huge news for everybody, particularly the family. But I think some of it is sort of overdone. I mean, just taking the example of prostate cancer, for instance, American data shows the 5-year to 10-year survival for early diagnosis of prostate cancer at 98% now. And it's a bit lower than that in the UK. But, this shows that cancer can often be treated, or many cancers can often be treated almost more as a chronic illness, which can be treated over a length of time.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Barnes, and that is particularly reassuring news to end on.